Afternoon, everyone. I'm Tom Bowers. I am the founder of Hypothesis Media. We are an interactive consultancy that operates at the intersection of content and technology for live events and broadcast. And we've got a fantastic panel here this afternoon for you, post-lunch slot, so please stay alert. There will be some interactive components as well for you to get involved to keep you a little bit more sparky during the session. This session is Let the Games Begin, exploring the future of sports viewing and how we can monetize it. Just to set the scene a little bit, the broadcast industry is undergoing a rapid change with live sports content, still maintaining a healthy audience figures. But how do broadcast and production companies hold on to existing viewers, yet also attract the younger demographics, ensuring that both traditional and new fans are catered for in the viewing experience? We saw Wendy on stage earlier. One thing she didn't mention was recently the new broadcast rights deal, the F1, has just been done in the US with Apple for a whopping £750 million for a 5-year deal. Combining one of the most watched live sports across the globe with the technological power and prominence of Apple, could this be defying a new era of sports viewing? The combination of live broadcasting muscle and powerful tech, will this carve a new landscape for how traditionally produced live sports content meets advanced technology? Well, we're going to find out in this panel. We're going to be looking at what's changing now and next for sports broadcast when it comes to televisual innovation for the fan, the producer, and the sponsor. So without further ado, let's meet our panelists. Barry, let's start with you, and I need to give you a clicker, which I haven't given you yet. Sorry, technical. There we go.
Green it is, yeah?
Green it is, yeah.
Shall I click?
Well, your intro and then click, yeah.
So, hi everybody, I'm Barry Flanigan. I'm Chief Strategy Officer at Aurora. We are an international production agency. We work all around the world with rights owners, brands, sponsors, broadcasters and streamers, and we create live and non-live content. So everything from big, complex live host broadcasts all the way through to digital and social content for TikTok and YouTube and Snapchat. And we work with big established rights owners like FIFA and ICC, but we also work with a lot of really interesting, emerging, disruptive rights owners and brands that are really looking to either build a sport from scratch and build a fan base from scratch, such as Formula E or E1 series or Women's Super League that is doing some really, really interesting things in football, as we heard from Johnny at YouTube earlier. And for a lot of those clients, big and small, a technology innovation combined with creative storytelling is really key to what we do. So it's all about using the tech to enhance what fans actually see on screen, not take away from that experience. And I think a great example of that is the work that we do with E1 series. I think we've got, hopefully, a VT that will just give you a little flavour of what we're doing there. We're actually doing the last event of Season 2 in Miami this weekend. For those that don't know it, it's International Powerboat Racing, the world's first International Powerboat Racing Championship. It's got celebrity owners. Tom Brady has a team, Will Smith has a team, Virat Kohli has a team. And it's combined with like really thrilling action on the water. But the tech plays a huge role, as we'll come on to talk about, in how we actually bring that to fans around the world. So hopefully...
This is it then, this is the moment we've been waiting for. We are now racing for E1.
E1 is the world's first electric powerboat racing series.
Oh my gosh!
The data isn't just informative or for displaying information, it's to ensure it actually looks good.
It travels to some of the most desirable locations across the planet. Each team is owned by a celebrity or VIP team owner, and the tech in the boats and in the broadcast brings the whole story to life.
Alessandro?
Yeah, good afternoon. I'm Alessandro Reitano. I'm heading sports operation for Sky Germany, DACH, and a little bit Italy. That means at the end of the day, I'm heading with my team, obviously, the entire supply chain from outside broadcast, studios, media operation, and innovation. And I brought also a sizzle. Shall I play first and then we talk about it, or see? And I'm part of a legacy broadcaster. Sometimes I feel I have to apologize for that. But no, we're reaching mass audiences still, and we are still valid in the market, and that's why we constantly, as a premium pay TV provider, we are obviously constantly working on innovation. And I brought a sizzle what we're doing next to the 90 minutes and the live event. No, that's not us. That's
I think you
else.
might have sat in the wrong place, and that's partly my fault.
That's us.
Ekstase! Traumtreffer! Das ist spannender, als jeder Krimi es sein kann.
Wir haben verdammt viel Neues.
Übernimm die Kontrolle mit Matchalarm und verpasse keine Schlüsselszenen am Samstagnachmittag. Mit Multiview kannst du alle Bundesliga-Parallelspiele am Samstag in einer Ansicht zeitgleich live verfolgen und jederzeit zum Einzelspiel deiner Wahl umschalten.
Interaktiv Fußball schauen, hier verpasst man definitiv nichts.
Wir haben noch eine andere Animation aus Sicht vom Torwart. Sieht ein bisschen aus, wie als würden wir in einem Computerspiel. Aber da ist Baumgartner mit seinem 4. Saisontor.
Neue Grafik, das sind die Augen von Ulisse.
Ja, das ist pur Will.
Sky Sport Fantasy, großes Thema.
Fantasy, du hast schon gesagt, betrifft alle Hobbymanager.
Jetzt vielleicht Grün.
Schließ ab! Nein!
Eine Kiste! 90 Punkte, alle Grünbesitzer freuen sich. Das war's noch nicht.
Sky Sport war ist endlich live. Fleißig da mitkommentieren. Ihr macht dieses Format aus.
Willkommen im Sky Sport Bundesliga Kids Club. Am Samstag gab es das größte Superheldenduell im deutschen Fußball. Bayern gegen Dortmund.
Oh, Tor!
Harry Kane. Achtung! Ach du liebe Zeit.
Diese Kombination ist der helle Wahnsinn. Sie machen es immer wieder.
Awesome. And finally, Stephen.
Hi, everybody. We're going to have to try and get this back to the correct spot. I thought I'd start with a couple of examples of enhancements in graphics that other sports that have done that are just really compelling. So I think this is the OG of enhanced graphics, isn't it? The 10-yard line in American football. Really simple. Couldn't possibly take it away once you've done it. A bit like the clock on a football match. Not at all intrusive. Aids the viewer experience. Doesn't get in the way. So actually, lots and lots of rules there, probably for everybody when they're thinking about enhancing broadcasting. I think what golf has done recently, and actually winning an Emmy for the production of the golf is another amazing example. They put the drone, they combined the drone footage with the TrackMan so that you could see where the ball is flying, and you can actually pan around as the ball comes towards you. And it also has a predictor that tells you whether the ball is going to be landing on the fairway, landing on the water, landing in the rough. Again, just a really simple enhancement, and anybody that remembers the old days of golf coverage where the camera used to point at a blue sky and used to hope to see a white dot against the blue sky as it panned rapidly will know how much that's improved the game. Same thing here, just showing the progression of one of the players to the green. And this is also part of the work that the PGA Tour did with the drone company and also with Bolt 6 and ARL, who are two of the suppliers for the America's Cup, which is a project that I've worked on the last 2 editions of the America's Cup. I'm not doing the next one, but I've done the last 2 editions, and we're going to talk about that now. Many of the stories here are very similar to what you see in Formula One. So this composite of images that you can see on the screen now shows you the ability for us to interview the coaches in an on-water equivalent of the Formula One pit lane. What's interesting about this, though, is that the coaches on the boats can't talk to the sailors who are on the boats. So as a viewer, you get to know more than the sailors themselves know. We put cameras everywhere that we could on an America's Cup yacht. So we had 12 cameras on each boat for the finals last year, 12 UHD cameras. We could bring back 2 UHD feeds, or the equivalent thereof. So generally, we brought back 1 full UHD signal and a composite of 4 HD pictures. We stored and recorded all the content that was filmed on the boats and picked it up later. We tried to show you the power that the cyclors were generating. We tried to explain what it was that all these people were actually doing on the boats, because most people have got no idea what is going on. So we try to explain the rules. Trying to explain the roles of the people on the team, but also the rules of the competition, which is the graphic in the bottom right. It just shows you which boat has got priority over the other, which boat is going to have to get out of the way as they come together. Now, the trick with sailing, a bit like your E1 series, is obviously there is no race course. So Wendy from Formula One before was lamenting the fact that there's no stadium, but at least in Formula One there's a track. So on sailing there's just water, and completely featureless if you look at it from a helicopter at 750 feet. And even if the boats are very big and very fast, that doesn't create much of a spectacle. So the first challenge is to actually define the race course, which we do by putting graphics around the edge of the race course, and then try and show which boat is in front, and then also how fast are the boats going. So this is the equivalent really of tagging the Formula One cars and putting the names on, where we also put the speed of the boats on, and you can see the distance between them. We also made that work from both of the helicopters that we used. So you've got the AR graphics imposed from the low helicopter as well as the high helicopter. Good for the viewer because you can see again where the boundaries are. Good for the sponsors because the sponsor billboards are as high as a boat. So they're much more visible on this shot compared to the high helicopter view. I said before, though, that the NFL have been very clever at working out how to enhance the fan experience, and so we decided to do the same and actually measure the wind. So we had 3 LiDAR systems scanning across the harbour in Barcelona, and they, with a lot of computational power, were able to divide the harbour up into a 10-metre square grid that was roughly at the height of a mast of a yacht. And for every 10-metre square on that grid, we knew the speed and the direction of the wind. And we could then take that data and put it on the screen. So here's an example here. If it's a lighter coloured, brighter space, there's more wind, and where it's darker, there's less wind. Pretty simple concept, but you've never previously been able to see what the wind field actually looks like. And you might assume that the wind is the same all the way across the racecourse, but of course it isn't. So bringing that to light was a big tool. The viewers at home were able to see this. The sailors on the boats do not have access to this. They're able to sense where the wind is, which is why they're as good at sailing as they are. So an armchair admiral sitting in front of their screen actually knew more than the sailors on the yachts. And you combine that with all of the graphics and you can do some clever stuff. So here we've got the wind field superimposed on the race coverage. You can see the speed of the wind in different places. You can clearly see that the boat on the bottom, which is the Kiwi boat, is in a patch of high wind because it's the bright colour, and it's doing 35.8 knots. And the Brits up the top are in a patch of less wind because it's dark, and they're only doing 31. So you know that one boat is going faster than the other, and you can immediately and intuitively understand why. And then the final thing we did was we plugged all the wind data into a yacht simulator, the same simulator that's actually used to power the America's Cup video game. And that enabled us to do some clever stuff because we could actually work out what was going to happen. Based on the direction that the boats chose to go, we could see who was going to be ahead at the next turning mark. Or alternatively, we could say, if the Brits are behind the Kiwis, what do they need to do in order to reel them in? Should they go up the left-hand side of the course and tack often? Should they go up the right-hand side of the course? Should they just do a minimum number of manoeuvres and just get to the other end? What's the fastest route to the top? So you could do an amazing amount of clever stuff. The trick was then to tell the stories, and so we had a graphics producer that worked with the team to try to decode the stories from all of the data. a point, I think, which links back to what Wendy was saying earlier. Right, in a whistle-stop tour, Tom, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. You've given me a very hard job of all this information you've given me in the space of 5 minutes, you guys. So lots to dive in there. So thank you very much for sharing all that, those sizzles. The first question I've got, Barry, if we start with you. With all the different programming you've obviously got a lot of different technical elements, technological elements you've sort of thrown in some of the programmings you're working on. When do you decide to go, well, this might be a gimmick, like we can try it, but we're not, putting it in for tech's sakes? Like, is there a point where you have this discussion and go, yeah, we should try that just because it's a buzzword, or there's a kind of real serious thought process put into it?
It's a great question. I'd like to think it's the latter. I think it's very easy in this industry sometimes for us all to get carried away with the tech a little bit. In terms of the capability, I love going to IBC, I love seeing what's coming down the line. But it all has to come back to, as I mentioned earlier, the story that you're trying to put in front of the viewer, and how do you turn that viewer from a passive viewer into an active fan? How do you make them care about what they're watching? So our starting point, before we send cameras anywhere, any of the productions that we're working on, we spend a lot of time with the client, with the techies, with the sources of data that are available, with our technical partners and vendors. And we boil the ocean a little bit in terms of what's available and what could we do with it. And what we're always looking for, we use sort of two watchwords internally. It's context and connection. So context meaning, can the data or the technology enable us to provide more information to a viewer that gives them a deeper immersion or a better understanding of what's going on in the sport? Steve's examples, I think, were brilliant with America's Cup. In E1, that takes the form similarly of where the boats are, or tactics, or points about the pilots in terms of their energy levels in the boat, that type of information that can explain to a viewer what's going on and more deeply immerse them in the sport. And by connection, what we mean by that is, does it help the viewer connect with the characters that are involved in the sport, or connect with each other? Because sport is a social practice, if you like, and when our enjoyment of sport is all about connecting with other people. So where that may take particular form is, we might look at how we, in motorsport, for example, where one of the challenges is they're wearing helmets, they're encased in metal machines. How do you get across to the viewer who the person is? So using AR graphics, which just bring to life the driver or the pilot without the helmet on. It could take the form of fan interaction. We're going to come on to talk, I think, about creator watch-alongs. It's been one of the themes of today. But what creators are able to do really, really well is involve their audience in what they're watching. So fan polls, fan votes, that type of thing. So yeah, we boil it all. We have a lot of fun sessions where we get the techies, tech producers, editorial producers, live directors, strategists, technical vendors, all in a room together, and you're looking at what's available, particularly with the data, and we're looking for the signal in the noise, way before we actually turn up on site. So that's a long way of saying it's the latter of what you mentioned, Tom.
That's what I thought you were going to say. Basically, for deeper storytelling is what you're kind of getting there. It gives you opportunities to tell stories in new ways.
Yeah, and just one, again, just to emphasize that point, that the ultimate decision makers and what we bring to screen are our editorial team. And the tech producers and our engineering partners facilitate that process, but ultimately it is a creative thought around what you actually put in the production, whether it's digital first or broadcast first, and that ultimately is a decision that's driven by editorial storytelling more than anything else. And it's quite easy to sometimes get that wrong. I've seen instances of sports getting that wrong sometimes, where they're just bombarding the viewer with information that actually doesn't deepen their fandom or drive engagement. So yeah, so we try always, ultimately, we have a good healthy debate, but we try ultimately to drive it from a storytelling perspective.
Great. Alessandro, I mean, a lot of the examples that you showed was more about the viewer experience. What are the sort of technical challenges of kind of adding these viewer experiences constantly to make sure you're evolving that viewer experience rather than just adding to the noise?
I mean, I think from our point of view, it comes with, and we heard it before from, let's say, in the study from Coretta. At the end of the day, you're dealing with a very fragmentation landscape out there, where, let's say, it looks like that live sports, and especially exclusivity, is the only differentiator in this market. That's why tech companies are now going that direction into, let's say, global rights. So what we're dealing here is, from my point of view, time and budget in the household. And our job is now, let's say, especially with, let's say, dealing with Tier 1 exclusivity, and what Sky stands for, is how to accommodate, let's say, the entire viewership range, where they sit, with rich experience and meaningful content. I think sometimes traditional broadcasters with a legacy aspect are trying to be as cool as TikTok. And it can't work out. It's impossible. And there is a lot of, let's say, energy into that. And rather, let's say, discussing the other stage by saying, okay, we have the exclusive rights. We are producing very meaningful content. We are a trusted brand. We are constantly evolving in regards of a technology if it comes to every age. So this Kids Club thing is fully produced with Gen AI. So this is an experiment by saying, get to the audience by 6 to 9 years old, to get a trust into the brand and whatsoever, because even on those social platforms, there is not a trusted platform for children content. It's not out there. So what is happening in the household is very simple. You have to connect them with the Sky brand. That's why we are, let's say, constantly evolving into what is next to the always on, because this is Sky Sport News, this is the live match, and you're building up the fandom. And what is definitely needed is, let's say, a clear product pipeline by saying, okay, I cater the entire audienceship at definitely where it sits with meaningful content, good experience, and the trusted brand. And that's why we heavily invest into something which is not giving by, this is only the technology, because this is not the problem. Tech is there. I really believe that you have to ask the question is, what problem you want to solve? And then you're ending up with the right tech stack. But sometimes it's ending from the other side. Okay, I have the latest technology, let's do something. And do something is not good enough. So first of all, you have to deal with the good enough. I think this is also something which is traditional broadcasters not accepting the below 100%. They're always exceeding by 110%. And then it's good enough. I think you have to deal with it is good enough. And then you have to deal with the flooding out there with so much content on every platform. And what is the really meaningful part where we drag in your fan base and keep it on your platform? And that's where we're good in, because we aggregate, we have exclusive content, and we're adding value for existing customer in a variety of things. If a fantasy sport, and this is obviously fantasy is something you cannot deny, it's happening. And you have to deal with it. But how to incorporate it in a traditional broadcast? It's barely not working, because there are so many football fans out there which are super traditionalists. They want to have no overlay of graphics. Whatever you're producing, they're not interested in. Clock and score, that's it. Otherwise you get complained by things. So you open up different channels, you open up things that you have to separate it. And this is the tough job, I think, working for Sky, offer this entire range of from a newborn till a 100-year-old. In the right possible way and meaningful content. And this is where we're constantly evolving and developing, but not from a tech sake point of view. So let's say what kind of problems we want to solve, and then we pick the right technology.
Great. I think there's so much choice, I think, for the viewer now, that it's like, well, how do we own the best choices to keep that experience premium? I think that's what you're saying.
Yeah, that's what I said with meaningful content, because I truly believe at the moment, the more we're talking about more clips, better clips, you're flooding the market with tons of content. Mm-hmm. And I think you have to redefine a little bit what is your purpose, let's say, what kind of story you want to tell, because it doesn't make sense to have 5,000 clips from one match, because what is your KPI at the end of the day? And you're ending up always with the discussion internally of total cost of ownership, because you're thinking, oh, there's the latest technology, let's buy another SaaS service which produces more clips on top of it, and then you're ending up in front of your CFO, bloody hell, why are you spending so much OPEX? And then you're ending up with the discussion in the room, okay, what is your KPI? So this comes to the monetization point of view, and also, let's say, the cooperation with platforms and partners. Again, what kind of problems you want to solve, and I think the discussion needs to be more open in a meeting room.
Great. Stephen, when we had our pre-discussion before this panel session, I'd never heard of wind data being used in live broadcast before, and I was like going away researching it for about 3 hours afterwards. So that layer of storytelling, I mean, what are the technical risks of adding something like that to a live broadcast that's never really been done in that way before?
Well, I think so. I think what you just said, it's a really interesting thing about what is good enough, because I say, and I think also what is good enough depends on which sport you happen to be, because you might be at the NFL and you might be at the Premier League, and the coverage is utterly amazing and has been utterly amazing for years and been honed and refined and refined and refined, and maybe there isn't so much further to go. I'm always a bit suspicious of that, because I think in practice we haven't yet found the top in any of these things, so I suspect there's probably still quite a lot of room to go. We just need to be ingenious enough to discover what's next. I think if you're in a challenger sport, and I'm going to put sailing in that category, I think it's the same for some of the properties that Aurora works with, you've got to explain what the rules of the game are. You've got to explain what the mystery is that these people why are these sailors so good? What is it that they're doing that people can instinctively understand what it's like to be a great footballer? I mean, we might not be capable of being a great footballer, but in our own minds, we sort of think that we can. In our own minds, we all think that we could score a par on the same hole as Tiger Woods or Rory McIlroy. I mean, we couldn't do it quite as often as them, but we all in our minds think we can identify with it. With some of these other sports, it's really hard to identify with it. And so, sailing is difficult because, you have an invisible racetrack because it's just the harbour. The water surface moves because of the tides and the waves, so it's not smooth like a football field. And you're powered by the wind, and the wind is this invisible, capricious force that the best people know where to go, and particularly when it's light wind conditions, someone that can spot where the wind is a major differentiator. So we set out to try to demystify some of these things. Going back to the point that I think Barry made, and also it was made by F1, you need to try to explain, what is it that the sailors are doing on board? What are their roles? What are the different? Who's steering? Who's trimming? What does that even mean? But when it comes to the wind, being able to visualize the wind and give the viewer more data and more insight than the sailors themselves have seemed like a pretty good idea. So we went off to try and solve this problem, and without the help of Capgemini, we would never have done it. We tried to do it for the Auckland edition of the Cup, and it was too hard and too complicated and frankly too expensive. Capgemini came in and they helped us enormously by using technology that would otherwise be used to work out where to put a wind farm. I mean, that's the practical industrial application of the LiDAR technology for them. So they were it was obviously a great marketing tool and initiative for them, and it's an extension of what they've done in rugby and in golf and various other sports. So, you can measure all that data. You wouldn't believe how hard it is to measure the wind field data, and then you have to work out how are you going to render it on a screen in a way that that some people can engage with it, and some people, to your point, who are not really interested, can just look through it and just follow the sailing. And I think we just about accomplished that, and combined that with the visualization through the game engine. I think it demystified the Cup to a general audience, and it also brought an added level to the coverage for people who are expert sailors. So both groups got something out of doing it. And I guess the next thing, if I was going to use that wind field data somewhere else, wouldn't it be good if you could make it not just be in one flat plane like that, but actually in 3D and put it on a golf course? That'd be fantastic. If you were on the, par 3 and you want to a par 3 and you could measure the wind field in 3D, and you then know that the players should be hitting the ball out to the right because the wind's going to bring it back, I think that would be quite an insightful thing.
Well, I think you're mixing that sweet spot between data and visualization of it. Like, what's going to be interesting to the viewer, even if they're not that interested in the data, does it look great? Is it enhancing how the production looks? And that is a perfect use case of when it does. And with the kind of heat spots that you're showing on those stills, like visually, it's like, it makes you be more inquisitive about what's going on and ask questions, which I think is important, and how you can use those technologies to tell those deeper stories. Thanks, guys. So 3 people on the stage. I'm going to ask the 4th audience, you guys, to answer a question now. Let's make this interactive. If you've answered before lunch, you don't need to do it again, but please feel free to answer the question. If we can just bring the slider question up, please. So the question is to just scan the QR code and you'll be able to vote live. So the question is, if you had to pick one technology area that's truly changing live sports production, what would it be? Is it 5G mobile streaming? Now this has changed now, I've got my card because I'll read it off here, it's easier, isn't it? Cloud-based production, AI and automation, personalised viewing experiences, 5G mobile streaming, augmented reality graphics, or live mixed reality. Please vote.
It's changing in real time, but we could have worked a bit harder on the data visualization given this.
So we could have made it 3D. Yeah. It's close. AI automation, cloud-based, you know, all switching. I love dynamic data. This is the fun part. Okay, so it's going to be a toss-up between AI automation and cloud-based production. I mean, is there any surprises there, guys? Like in terms of the general sentiment, where you see the sort of main changes happening?
Well, Stephen? I think it's interesting, isn't it? I'm a bit surprised that the graphics one
yeah, I am
is
too,
as low
actually.
as it is. But
you can't sell graphics.
Maybe that's it. But graphics were quite down the bottom of the Coretta research graph as well. I saw the one that I thought was interesting. We could pick up on the AI story if you like. So I mean, we also used AI in the coverage of the last America's Cup. I didn't talk about it before, but one of the challenges with the America's Cup is to know where all the boats are, to measure the position of the boats accurately. And in the past, that's been done using GPS data. But we decided we wanted to do it a bit more accurately than GPS data was likely to be able to make possible. So we had a second camera mounted in the turret on the shot-over system that was carried by each of the helicopters. And the second camera effectively meant that you could do a 3D, the camera system had 3D vision because it had 2 eyes. It had the main shot-over broadcast camera, the main broadcast camera in the shot-over turret, and had the second camera with it, which was quite backed off and quite a wide angle. The combination of that with some clever processing by the guys at Bolt 6, using the same technology that's used for virtual umpiring in tennis, enabled us to calculate the position of each of the yachts to millimetre accuracy, so that was a use of AI that we had. And we also, I think you'd have seen from some of the stills, we had lots of graphics on the water, and of course nobody wants the boats to get to be obscured by the graphics unless they should be obscured by the graphics. So we actually used an AI system to look at the boats, and we had a model of each of the yachts, and we used AI systems to doing the cutouts so that the graphics were pixel perfect, and you didn't find yourself in a position where a sponsor logo got in front of one of the boats. So yeah, I think AI and automation, I'd be up for that, and we've used it a bit.
Barry, what's your view? You siding with cloud-based production, AI, automation being top choice? What?
Well, I think in our real-time graphic display, it's cloud-based remote production that
it's changing.
I think it's just edged it.
We'd have problems if it was strictly like we'd know who we're going to vote out, really, because it's that close.
And look, I'm not surprised actually that that's up there at the top, because I think it's having a fundamental impact on our industry, what we do as producers, but also beyond the obvious kind of discussion around cost and sustainability that remote production enables. I think by being in the cloud, by live productions being in the cloud, it's actually opening up a lot more possibilities around sort of indirect areas, if you like. So, for example, by being in the cloud, we've got it this weekend with our E1 Miami event. We've got a skeleton crew on site. We've got everything coming back and being mastered and produced with our facilities partner in Ealing. We've got sporting data that's been provided from Barcelona. We've got AR that's been done remotely. We've got VR graphics that are being added remotely. And then we're also distributing and localizing that content in the cloud for partners all around the world. And I think that those type of workflows just wouldn't have been possible with a traditional production approach. It's also opening up really interesting possibilities around particularly that sort of localization element, like being able to create very quickly at scale in the cloud locally translated or localized productions for broadcasters, streamers, but also creators around the world, and just doing that more flexibly than would have been the case in the past, means that sports can reach an audience in very quickly, cost effectively, in ways that just wouldn't have been possible a few years ago. So yeah, if I'd voted, which I didn't, I would have voted for that.
I would make a different vote, and I mean, I'm not surprised because a lot of vendors are in this room, obviously. I would always see, and that makes, I mean, we have to go to the customer and fan centricity. That's why personalized viewing experience must be first. The rest is commodity, part of, let's say, AI, because we are not there yet, but it underlies at the end of the day, and it is the tech layer for what we are talking about. Let's say if we are talking about what kind of problems we want to solve. Again, it's not the technology, because if you, let's say, bring down your cost, you're choosing something which you like, you can use on-prem or cloud, and this brings the flexibility. But to be honest, on first, and this is the thing we're constantly missing, what is the customer? Do we know the customer? What kind of problems we want to tackle, and then we choose the right technology. It's always the problem we are doing, sorry for this industry, constantly on stage, but also in the meeting rooms. We're also debating what is the ownership, what is the thing, and then it comes to total cost of ownership, and then we miss the opportunity, okay, oh, unfortunately we missed that there is a fan out there. And oh, we missed, unfortunately, the monetization point of view. That's why I would put, let's say, personalized or viewing experience as, or let's say different shape on the customer experience, the fan experience first, discuss what is, let's say, achievable, what is needed, and then we choose the right technology.
Yeah, I think I would echo that actually, and I mean, I used to work for Sky and then worked for Google for a while, but so I agree with about the put the customer first is a really important point. I mean, sometimes people, I think it's worth also just pausing for a minute just to be slightly optimistic about viewing for sports overall. So if you look back at the stats, and I'm going to give you some UK stats now because I don't have a comparable international ones, but for as long as the bar panel has existed, there's been roughly 1 billion hours of sport watched by people in the UK every year. And historically, obviously, that's been on linear television. So if you look back in time, it tends to go up and down according to whether there's a World Cup or an Olympics. But when it does, it grows by about 20%. So roughly, it's 1 billion hours a year watched by the UK public, traditionally linear television. Funnily enough, even now, there's still 1 billion hours watched by the UK public on linear television of sport in a year. If you do the maths and just look at YouTube and just consider YouTube viewing alone, which is where actually the vast majority of online viewing is due to the long session lengths, there's about 2 billion hours of sport watched by UK consumers in a year. So the total market for sports viewing is 3 billion hours now. Still 1 billion hours on telly, plus 2 billion hours on YouTube. And then within the YouTube numbers, half of the viewing of YouTube in the UK is on a TV set. So if those of you are still keeping up with my maths, we've now got 2 billion hours a year of sport being watched by UK people on large screens like televisions, and 1 billion hours being watched on phones and other devices. So the market has trebled in size. We might all wish for this sort of old world where there was only one broadcaster and think that there was loads of sport being watched at the time. Well, actually, the market's grown threefold since those days, and it's may have got a bit more complicated, but if you think about it, the consumer is still enjoying an enormous amount of sport, and our job just got a bit harder to work out how to service them, keep them really happy.
So just to move the conversation slightly forward from the viewer, how do we, well, not from the viewer, but how do we monetize those, that, you know, with the stat that you've just given there, what's the monetization opportunities with these new technologies for the viewer's benefit? Like, there's a vast amount that we're trying, all of you guys are trying new stuff, giving more data, more visual impact, but deeper storytelling. But, you know, you mentioned Capgemini being involved. Is it more sponsor prominence within the new technologies that are being applied? Like, where do you think this opportunity is to monetize this still great viewing sports industry that we're in?
I'll say this before he says it, but he will in a minute. If you look back at the stats from Coretta before, you could see the right spend in the UK and all around Europe is very substantial, and a lot of that's driven by pay TV broadcasters. So the old sources of revenue are still there. I think the guys who have got those legacy business models, I think that's what you said, have got to work a lot harder to make the numbers work. I think if you're Now, if you're a challenger sport, you might not be making much from your TV rights anymore because the money's concentrated ever more into top-tier programming, so you have to work a lot harder. And that means as a rights holder, I think you have to look at either sponsor funding, sponsor solutions. If you could get more of the sponsors on screen. I mean, if put it this way, for the America's Cup, if you couldn't use graphics to put the sponsor on screen, there would be no sponsors because they wouldn't be visible any other way.
And I think that's a really interesting point. Where a lot of challenger sports, challenger formats, I think, are completely bypassing a broadcast-first approach. So if you look at, I think Johnny from YouTube mentioned some examples earlier, like Baller League, Kings League, these type of properties, where the monetization opportunity comes from the ability to involve brand partners in a much, much deeper way in the fan experience than you would get from a traditional badging exercise on a sports event. You know, down to the level of brands bringing value to fans around, you know, different aspects of the format, the way that they're working with creators, the way that they're deeply embedded into the sporting format itself. Now, these challenger sports have a great opportunity to do that because they're starting from a blank sheet of paper. It's much harder for Tier 1 rights owners to work out some of these rights that they want to give to sponsors because they also have to keep the rights owners and the people that have paid a lot of money for the rights very, very happy. But we see certainly a lot of the challenger brands and sports we work with increasingly thinking, I don't need to try and make money from broadcast rights at all. It doesn't mean that they don't want to be in broadcast, but it's much more about reach rather than about trying to drive rights revenue or licensing revenue. And they're building their business models in different ways around brand sponsorship, host city fees, different ways that they can look to kind of monetize the fan experience, if you like.
And do you think that, like the big broadcasters, do you think there's something to be learned from?
No.
Oh, sorry, did you want to respond to that? Sorry.
No. Please.
Do you think the big broadcasters have got something to learn from the likes of the Baller League and the Kings League, or do you think they're diluting their proposition by trying to copy what's been successful with them?
I mean, I would just say briefly, exactly as you said earlier, that whether they should do it or not, start with the audience. Who is the audience that you're trying to attract? What do they want to view? What are they viewing? What characters are they engaging with, and how are they consuming the sports that you're putting on as a broadcaster? And if you're not creating formats or showing up in places that audience is in, you're not going to have an audience in a few years' time. So my answer to that question would be, it doesn't mean trying to ape everything that's been done in some of these newer formats, but it absolutely does mean understanding audience behavior and how to potentially partner. I mean, Baller League is on Sky, for example.
Exactly.
And that's a great deal for Sky. That's a great way of engaging an audience that maybe wouldn't traditionally be coming to Sky.
Exactly.
And I think more and more we'll see these sort of partnerships.
And that's why I'm always coming to the point: know your audience, and know the data, and using data to know your audience, and then you can make the right strategy what's from interest or not. It doesn't make sense, let's say, bombarding the entire Sky platform with tier 5 content because you want to look younger or something. If it's not relevant, even the tier 5 sport is too expensive to produce. So choose your battlefield wisely, I think, and that's why you have to know the data and your audience. This is the missing thing where, let's say now, especially platforms and broadcasters are investing a lot of, let's say, brain and hopefully smart tools to identify exactly the gap, because while the competition is harder, and I come always to the point, it's time and it's budget in every household. And where you choose to have a limited time and you have a limited budget, and now you choose the offer, what you can have. And that's why it's absolutely natural that tech giants are now, or Relevant is now pitching or tendering a global package for Champions League. It's absolutely, I mean, there are a couple of rights, NBA, NFL, Champions League, that become global, and then it comes us let's say for us, the challenge to deal with the time and the budget spent. And this is exactly the challenge. And by the way, there's no $1 million idea, but there's the strategy exactly to diversify your program, creating the right partnerships, also with YouTube, is not the evil. Create the partnership, the collaboration with exactly those platforms.
Part of the family.
Exactly. Aggregate on your platform and not competing constantly with something which is anyway happening. And I think this is, again, is a strategy outlook more than, okay, this is the idea, this is the $1 million solution here. And I think this is exactly what Sky is doing. Choosing now the right decision and the strategy to acquire which rights, and in the local, and by the way, it's also cultural from a local perspective. The German market is maybe different, still different than the UK market, also from competition point of view. It's very traditional based in Germany on football, only soccer. So there is no second other sports. While in the UK, in Italy, you have a variety of sports where you can also diversify your program, your strategy, to create fan base and a different thing. That's why it's important to have this group strength, to invest in the local, to be home of sports in the local market with the right setting of rights by saying, okay, this is attractive and meaningful for the audiences.
I'm conscious we've really run out of time, guys, but I've got a bit of a pertinent question to the final thought. What do you think is the biggest challenge moving forward? Do you think it's keeping hold of traditional viewers or trying to attract younger ones?
I mean, to borrow a movie title, I think it's both. It's everything, everywhere, all at once. And it's figuring out how you show up on what platforms, how do you engage an existing core audience that may be watching your content on broadcast, but also how to show up in spaces like YouTube and TikTok. And I think a one platform, one size fits all approach just doesn't work for a rights owner or a broadcaster or a brand in this market. So the challenge is how to do that in a scalable, effective way where you're creating lots and lots of different types of content for different platforms. That would be my top and swath.
Alessandro?
Yeah, I can echo that. At the end of the day, it is really everything because you have to protect your core business. This is your business as usual. By the way, this is trained and learned. And I think you have to shift a little bit the mindset on the new fields. And this is something, either you can do it by yourself or you're asking for help. Also, this is something traditional broadcasters are really, really aware of. Okay, please help me. No, we can everything do it internally because we have the capabilities. Maybe it's not. And that's why I'm thinking it's both on every field and then asking the right question to the right partners and hopefully solving the problems in the different areas.
Finally, Stephen?
Well, nothing much to add to that. Honestly, I think the answer to your question depends on the starting point, which is who are you? Which rights holder are you? And then what follows from that is, well, what are your objectives? What are your objectives for your sport, for your property, for the thing that you own? And that then leads to your solutions if you can work out where the audience is. And we should be optimistic, as I said before, about how much sport is being consumed. So you just need to work out which bit of that is important to you, because you aren't going to be the only thing that people watch, so you've got to make some choices.
Great, thank you guys. It's been a really interesting session. Appreciate all your inputs. Please, audience, thank me for these great panelists.